Go.
They've been friends going on 20 years and now stepping into one of the most dangerous behaviors of a lifetime, and that's having an opinion and openly talking about it on the internet. It's Pinche and The Gringo.
And we're back.
How goes it, man?
Pretty good, pretty good.
Week.
Whenever I say that, it makes me think of like when I'm on the Geek Out essay.
Oh,
And we're back.
You're going to pivot off in the wrong direction one week. That'll be fine. We can handle it. That's pretty neat.
I end up saying, and welcome back to Geek Out essay. Whatever. We digress. So we have a lot to talk about today. A lot of stuff has been happening. And luckily, a lot of this stuff doesn't have to do with COVID.
No, for once we can actually get away from it a little bit. Although, it would be the perfect opportunity about what happens when you vote an idiot into an office of power, and he says, "Oh, it's the people's fault." Yay, Craig Abbott. Yeah.
So,
guys,
don't
want to claim.
Vote out there. Which another thing, it reminds me, another thing that's been coming up. Before we get into our topics, did you hear that they're talking about Matthew McConaughey running for Texas governor?
Oh, sweet Jesus, dude. The people that thought this were too stupid, they will vote him in.
Yeah.
And, dude, I guess I could make the pathetic celebrity commitment that if he were to win, I'd move. I don't know where the hell I'd move, but no. Screw that guy, dude. Don't like him. Don't care for him. Don't like his movies. Don't like him as an actor. I mean, sure as hell ain't going to take him on as a politician because he doesn't have anything. All right. Yeah, I mean, he doesn't have anything. That's what he has. That's exactly what he would have for the state of Texas. No other valuable benefit. It'd be Trump at a state level office. You have a celebrity put into a political office. I don't see any other benefit coming from him.
Well, I mean, we had Reagan. He was a governor, and then he became president.
Oh God! Don't spell an even more crappy future. I don't know. It's like. That would be it. It's like, why did you vote on him? It's like, well, man, I saw him in Dazed and Confused, and I just checked his box.
They probably passed the cannabis thing, though.
What is his actual? See, that's the thing. We have to go into what his issue.
Well, I don't think he's. I think people are like pushing for it because of how active he's been during this COVID crisis. Because he's going out and he does a lot of philanthropy out there.
Oh, yeah. You mean wasn't it him who did the Ford truck loaded full of masks that could have been delivered by somebody else, except he was doing it essentially because it was a Ford commercial? Is that what we mean by his activism?
Well, he does a lot of stuff. Other than that, he does a lot of stuff like he was... I think he was like playing bingo with a nursing home. I don't know, but again, we digress. So
that was exactly it. He's got a brand new Ford F-350 crew cab dually full of masks in the back that could have been delivered by a UPS truck, but it's a perfect photo opportunity for him in a Ford sale.
Yeah. and hence better for, if he's going for governor. He needs to get himself out there.
Oh, yeah, it's the ultimate scum-sucking level of a politician. So he's forming right into the mold right off the bat of being what a true POS a politician is. There's no true value to what he can contribute, but hey, looks great in photo ops until he's tear gassing protesters so he can get to the church, so he can hold up the Bible of Satan in front of it and get a picture for Newsweek. So the future of McConaughey as Abbott to president, or as governor to president. That's my Simpsons foretelling of the future. But on our true topics, we'll obviously be revisiting that batch of stupidity in a future episode.
If it ever happens, it may not happen, but who knows?
Yeah, I don't know. We have to see
how
what next.
Things have been happening.
Those idiots.
Who knows?
Yeah, the vote prostitutes for Abbott's position should be starting up their prostitution campaigns, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so they should be starting to whore for votes. Yeah, there's a Ford commercial. So the one we were going to touch on and some other topics is Taco Bell fires employee for wearing a Black Lives Matter mask. That's the media screaming that. Have you seen that?
Yes. Yeah. And we've been both you and I have been working for corporate businesses for a very long time.
Indeed. 20 some odd years, if not more.
And when you work in the corporate world, there are rules that you have to abide by. And if you don't abide by those rules, did this have something to do with Black Lives Matter? I don't personally know, because we weren't there.
I think the sketchy thing is the media shenanigans here, where they took a nothing burger problem, twisted the headline, and morphed it into something that would get them clicks. Because the report is the headline is Taco Bell fires an employee for wearing a Black Lives Matter mask, which is a twist of the truth. From what we're seeing, the reports and in his own video is the manager telling him to take off that mask. And I'm not sure if there's a missing piece in that. Did she tell him to take off the mask and put on one of the company supplied ones or not? I don't think we have that side of the story.
Yeah, maybe
yet.
They have their own Taco Bell branded masks.
Cordita Crunch on the front or something. But yeah, I mean, that would make sense, right? They're going to have some type of mask that they're approved, and that's got to be something that they have to apply to with state. And then there's another piece leaning into this saying that if he walked out, the manager would fire him. Remove the mask, he refused. His manager then threatened to fire him if he walked out. Now, I worked in fast food. And I'll stretch it here, and let's see if you find the same.
Okay.
But the possibility that I would be fired if I walked out of my fast food job, or any job for that matter, in most cases, in the middle of my shift.
If you did that, the possibility is like 100% that you would get fired.
Yeah,
80%, unless you're
pretty
good
high.
You're really good friends with them, so that may make a difference.
But unfortunately, it's the perfect opportunity too, because if you have any other marks on the record that they're just looking for a reason, you're given it. The media's turned that into some serious trash, but it appears it worked.
But the thing, if they liked you, if that person liked you, I mean, wouldn't you give that person a chance?
Yeah, it's
like, so there had to be another reason other than that alone, because there could have been a conversation that said, "I understand, and I respect your view and your feelings about Black Lives Matter, but in order to work here, you can go home, take a day off, think about what you're doing right now, and then come tomorrow, put the right mask on, and then start your work day."
Yeah. And also, but just thinking of a manager in a fast food joint, there's 30 customers in line, and your ability to deal with an employee issue, not an employee specific issue, but an employee related issue with 30 customers in line.
Wait, but we're talking about Taco Bell though.
3 customers in line between one register, the drive-through, and somebody passing by on the street who's thinking about getting Taco Bell. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so 3 potential customers in line, increasing the stress level. That's what I mean. So where does that go? Does that dig in? Because it's Taco Bell, but it's not like Taco Bell owns that. It's a franchised restaurant, so they're all independently owned and operated, running under
I didn't actually see what he said, what the employee said happened. So what did the employee say?
I watched a couple of videos from, she's telling him, the manager's off camera, and she's telling him that he has to take off that mask, because they wear surgical masks apparently.
Mm-hmm.
So he said he'd opted for the BLM mask because the surgical masks were too restrictive when the store got hot.
But here's the thing, surgical masks protect you better than the masks that he had.
The cloth mask, yeah.
Yeah. Or it should, supposedly.
So
and I'm sure that they want them to use a surgical mask, and that would prevent them from getting sued because they took their precautions correctly. Instead of, oh, you can just wear any old mask and it's fine.
Exactly. What happens with the customer who gets COVID or actually transmits it there? And then, or receives whatever. If it's not done by a tracing app and it's not tracked, which we've talked about tracing apps, but let's say it's an employee of that same Taco Bell has COVID, the other employees contact it or not, but a customer does. And if the policy was they would wear a surgical mask based on state reopening guidelines, then Taco Bell opens themselves up to liability. You're perfect. You're right on it. The other thing that this twists to, though, is like you and I talked about, is most companies have some type of, and I'm going to use the solicitation policy to start. So you can't solicit, you can't sell cookies for your kid's ball game. You can't sell popcorn for Boy Scouts. You can't sell Girl Scout cookies. You can't...
Even though it happens all the time.
In a previous world, it did. I've not seen it in a current. But
yeah,
into that same aspect, you also couldn't solicit... aspects of religion weren't supposed to be on display.
Mm-hmm.
Political affiliation.
Politics.
Yeah, politics.
Well, yeah,
but we saw presidential stuff, but that's because of a president.
They can't do political stuff, but they can send emails about PACs.
Their political action
committees.
You can't say anything about a political candidate, but hey,
we can.
Would you donate some money to our political action committee? Which
I'm like, no.
I will never donate a dime to any PAC. There's no. No bueno, not going to do that there. So there's that one, and then Taco Bell's own uniform policy, like we said, was their uniform policy. I mean, this thing's with the pandemic, policies, documentation, and procedures that have to be updated is moving at the speed of light, right? Mm-hmm. It's like, hey, everybody throw on a mask. It's the only way we can all get open and everybody keep getting paid. Otherwise, we're going to start laying people off. But if they didn't document it in that policy, I mean, it's just a uniform policy. Because also remember, the last page you sign of every policy that you and I have ever signed throughout the history of our employment has that little caveat at the bottom. These policies are subject to change with or without notice, isn't it? Exactly. It changed potentially. It definitely changed. So is that in the aspect of firing the young man? And then to play to that, so is that what they used? What would you expect Taco Bell's positioning? I have some input on where they are now, but what do you think their positioning should be in this situation?
I mean, it opens up a whole can of worms where, if you're going to wear a Black Lives Matter, then, I believe in Blue Lives Matter, so I want to wear a Blue Lives Matter mask. Or I like a White Lives Matter mask. Do we want to see that?
You would need to allow that.
You would need to allow
Taco
that
Bell, because you're allowing the other side of the argument, right? Or the narrative, whatever is being crafted at that point. So that you set a dangerous precedent, and that's the thing. So I would expect them to handle to essentially do what most companies do. We don't comment on specific employee. What's the term they use? Specifically, employee matters, right? Mm-hmm. All we can tell you is Taco Bell's policy on mask is X, and that's what we're looking to stick to. And then they do what they normally do, which is an internal handling of, hey, look, we had a bad day. You're not canned. Mm-hmm. At least if you don't want to be, let's have that conversation to get you back at work. We have an employee need, because we both know that the even for fast food, it's not pick the first dude off the street and they're able to handle the kitchen.
Right.
I mean, dude, the bun machine at McDonald's is a little nuts. Mm-hmm. And it's still like first day jitters for people to sort out. So keeping a trained employee such as him, he had 8 years on the job from what I recall. That dude's skilled in that position. He knows how to do a lot of things around that place. Yeah. 8 years, you know how to do some things in that place for sure. So Taco Bell at that specific franchise more than likely doesn't want to lose that employee.
No. And it costs to train people.
The hiring process, the training process, the new uniform, just expense items, all that stuff is it racks up onto that aspect. So they're in a better position. So
you're thinking there was another reason for firing him than just that?
I think it was a hothead moment for both sides. Mm-hmm. Maybe a hothead not being the right term. It's just heated for both. The manager's in a situation and probably didn't handle it all that well. The employee is probably feeling attacked. Mm-hmm. And is there prior strife between these two on the gig that also weighs in? And then we end up in this situation. Right. And the timeliness of it and the subject matter of his mask plays into the perfect media narrative that gets clicks. And instead, what do we see from Taco Bell? Taco Bell says that workers may wear Black Lives Matter merchandise after the video went viral of the former employee at the fast food chain saying he was fired for wearing a face mask with the slogan. So now Taco Bell is deeply upset by the incident, and they're talking about it specifically, which in another aspect of this, they could have opened themselves up. So they're playing defense for the against that employee. They're trying to protect themselves from a lawsuit from that employee. They haven't even looked at the liability they then open themselves up to from the manager and from the franchise owner.
Right.
Because what they've done by siding and not sticking to their policies, which is why you have large chunks of legal teams draw them up. But instead of sticking by their paperwork and their policies and crafting a well-suited argument to say, this is our policy and this is how we follow it. Absolutely, we support BLM. But in our restaurants, in our franchises, this is our policy and this is how we will follow it, we'll move it forward, and we don't comment on specific employee stuff. But now they've left it up, because now if this Taco Bell, what do you think is going to happen to that Taco Bell in the next couple of weeks? They're going to get business? Are they going to get boycotted? Are they going to get protests standing out in front? You've opened up the franchise owner. You've opened themselves up to liability and lawsuit from the franchise owner. And
so did they hire this kid back?
It doesn't say whether they've hired him back yet or not. It says we've been in conversations with Denzel, which is the name of the employee, and it's in a public newspaper, folks. I'm not doxing anybody's first name or anything there. And our franchises to make sure our actions represent our words, the company added. And they kind of tie to June 18th. I think they reused one of their others. They say they're so this was their tweet. We're deeply upset by the incident that took place in Youngstown, Ohio. And they basically doxed their employee his entire first and last name in a tweet, which may get out there anyway, but as a physician, as an employer, they're not talking to their lawyers when they do this stuff. This is a Trump tweet. This is like, fire the guns and then find out where we were aiming them. That's the kind of tweet they just made here. So they basically doxed the guy's full name. Should never have been put in. So they're saying that he should have never been put in this position. We believe the Black Lives Matter movement is a human rights issue and not a political one. We do not tolerate racism or violence against the Black community, and we demand inclusivity. We know we still have a long way to go, and we will make serious, tangible changes. We've been in conversations with Denzel and our franchises to make sure our actions represent our words, and we will hold ourselves accountable. We're in a situation where companies feel themselves forced to pander to the narrative that's currently in the media. When for the past 25 or 30 years, they would say, this is an internal company issue and we will handle it. So is it a good thing that they're pivoting themselves to be more public about their handling of this stuff? Because how many times have you seen them say, we'll be handling an internal investigation, and you instantly turn your nose up because you can smell the BS in that statement?
Yeah. You're
it sounds
blowing
like
smoke up my butt.
Exactly. And it could be from how I'm saying stuff right now, it could be taken that my perspective is they should be handling it that way. No, I'm saying there is a balance of something that comes into here.
There is a balance, and I don't think this, I think they're right in stating that this is a human rights issue.
Say that again?
That this is a human rights issue. In stating that. But here's the thing.
I think you're right. It's a human rights issue, but it's definitely being used as a political issue.
Yeah, but it's being used as a political issue. But that's another thing that we have to like read between the lines. This is a human rights issue. This is something that's been wrong for centuries.
Right, but in this specific instance, we're seeing the media twist a topic into him being fired for the BLM
they can twist
which isn't truly what he was fired.
They can twist whatever they want, and then we'll just tell you the truth.
We smell your BS, and we substitute hopefully the truth of some sort. Trying to see.
There's going to be people on the left and the right, from one extreme to the other extreme, and we're going to tell you what it is from the middle, as we understand it.
Yeah, and it's like, also we've talked about this. Our research level is mostly around what we read as we can throughout the week, and then it's kind of like a conversation at the bar. Something you heard go on in the day, and you're like, hey, did you guys hear about this crap? And you all kind of get everybody to put in some type of input, but the research is a little shallow, and then it's opinionated. I'm trying to get into our chat just to see what we have in there. Do you have that up as well?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
We haven't gotten anything yet.
Cool. I just want to make sure we're missing anything on it. So it's like, Taco Bell's put in a position here, and their reaction to how they handle it is kind of knee-jerky.
But as any company would be responding to something like this at this time.
Right, at this time, right? So we're looking at it plays into actually our next topic as well. One of the other ones we have. I don't want to skip over because we kind of thought this might pivot into the Supreme Court's ruling around the LGBTQ
where I see it as a little different is that if someone were to come in wearing an FTP mask.
I got you. I know.
Yeah. So if they were wearing an FTP mask, well, that's a little... That's not necessarily talking about human rights. That's talking about there's this organization that I hate. when you're talking about Black Lives Matter, you're not talking about hating any other race. You're just saying that Black Lives Matter as much. So you're not promoting hate with that. But if you're wearing an FTP mask, then you're promoting hate with that.
Right. So it goes into the same aspect, and this is where the problems come with discussing the whole narrative too. Narrative can be taken such a wrong way. But if you're going to, if you're,
oh, it's green.
Yeah, I saw that. I was telling you earlier. Yeah, you're in visual glass. So it's like you were saying, if you're going to make a statement that, hey, you know what, our employees can wear Black Lives Matter branded face masks and materials and things like that, then you cannot punish or push back on an employee who wants to voice their opinion of the All Lives Matter statements or the Blue Lives Matter statements or the, hey, there's also good cops statement. You can't say you're accepting of one and not the other. And you're not an individual. Taco Bell is not an individual. It's an entity. And as that entity, they are stuck into some specifics, and those specifics being as fair and equal in treatment across the entire base of their corporation.
Yeah.
So we won't fire this person for age. We won't fire this person for their sex, male or female. We won't fire them because of their religious beliefs. And then now we also have the SCOTUS ruling, which is good, that you won't be able to fire somebody for sexual orientation.
Who would have thought that was going to happen with this administration?
Well, that's the thing, is he was doing whatever he could to make sure it didn't. He was even trying to roll back. Actually, I think he was successful in rolling back some of the protections within the Health Care Act around it.
But who would have thought the current Supreme Court would have made that decision?
Well, didn't he really only have two puppets on the Supreme Court as it is?
I think the two puppets was enough.
Yeah, but in a dissent ruling, so that's the thing, is one of his key, I guess they tagged him as conservatives, one of his key conservative members was the one who actually wrote the opinion on it. Which that's kind of his administration and him as well.
I think we're starting to see dissension in the ranks.
Yeah, and that dissension being around human rights and equality, it would appear. Because nine current justices, they don't actually break them out by their kind of leanings. Because I remember when he was getting added, I can see his face here, but I can't tie his name. But you look at Kavanaugh. Kavanaugh was his boy, right?
Yeah.
And I remember some of the stuff that dude had said and did, and you're just like, oh, we really want that guy with a Supreme Court gavel?
He's crying on national television.
Oh, that stuff don't bother me one bit, man. I mean...
But it was fake crying. That bothered me.
It's probably all fake crying. Everybody get on TV and be like, you know, if I cry, I get like 10 more likes on the Instagram post. Oh, I'm going to dress a tear.
I'm going to cry on TikTok.
I start squinting and looking towards the top and trying to do the actress force cry. So it's a trip. I mean, it's the fact that we need to do this is still crap, right? So we've talked about that too. The perfect world is none of those laws exist because attrition takes its toll. If your business doesn't hire people of color, that goes through the grate, right? It goes through the grapevine. It's like, man, that place is racist, dude. They won't hire anybody people of color. So in that aspect, the community and the communities that support those communities don't support that business. Same thing with the firing of people for specific protected reasons. But we know that's not the case, right?
Right.
And in that we have truth tellers and people who sue employers based on being fired for illegitimate reasons or protected group reasons. And then we have those that ambulance chasing lawyers more than the people, I think, that will try and file based on one of those subjects as well. I'm glad to see that this did go through, because it doesn't make any sense that we would protect age, religion, gender, and
orientation or religion.
All those things.
Yeah,
that we would protect all those things and not protect this one.
Well,
but I think there's a couple of folks I follow, conservative commentators, and they brought up a lot of concerns around the fact that you're hired. I don't even know if that's really an argument that I want to mention, but I'll mention it, but not coming from my direction. I'm repeating what was said, not my thinking. But he was saying you get hired with the very much acceptance of a straight male or straight female. And then some point down the road, you're more open. Mm-hmm. This person is more open. And at that point, let's say you get fired just before that, or the negatives start coming out from employers, and they're like, oh, you can feel that, like you're being kind of singled out or something. I still think that would get weeded out in the court of law, don't you think, though? Because you would have instances from both sides, proving or disproving. We would hope, right?
I think this is in the spirit of what was intended by our forefathers. Just they weren't exposed to as much of the sexual orientation views, or there wasn't a lot of LGBTQ.
Not publicly.
Not publicly.
Because I mean, that was actually one of the educating factors for me, was as you start to look at, especially, would it be San Diego? I think it'd be early 40s, 50s San Diego. Mm-hmm. And you start to look at the arresting of, the busting of gay clubs. So you're like, what? There's a gay club in the 50s? You just know what I mean? That's the kind of mm-hmm. education that had to come to light to me in some things. Is like, dude, it's not like this stuff started yesterday. It wasn't mid 80s and mid 70s crazy. No, years.
Yeah.
Eons. Decades. Mm-hmm. Millennials. Not specific speaking to the target group, but that much speaking in the frame of time.
Yeah.
And you're just at that point, I think my brain gets a little more understanding when I realize that something was in place before my existence was even on the radar. Mm-hmm. Makes it a little more mentally clicking for me. I don't know if that makes any sense at all to some people, but it's like, stuff was here before I am. So
yeah,
it's places ahead of me. And it makes me think into that aspect. So it's like upgraded equality. Mm-hmm. Right? Mm-hmm. Society's changed, and we're growing with it.
I don't know. I look at our forefathers, and they put in a way to amend the Constitution, because they knew that it wasn't going to last to be this way forever.
What do you mean in amending what Constitution? What portion of the Constitution?
The Constitution or the Bill of Rights. So you can amend it, and they wrote that in when they first wrote it.
Yeah, I mean, I see that. It's like, I mean, everything was put in it, but it was supposed to still be put. Everything is in place in its way to ensure that it's not. Modifications or amendments are not done in the effort of increasing the government's power over the people. Mm-hmm. So it's not easy to do that.
But it was done to grow with the times.
Right, and I think that's where you get the generic language through it all. Yeah. Because there's nothing in the bill of, and if this changed somewhere in the middle of all this, somebody tell me, because I'm not always great on history. I read what I can. But at no point did we have anything in the Bill of Rights or in the Constitution that specifically, maybe the earliest versions, that said only white males will have this, I'm going to use people of color as a term instead of anything else, but people of color shall be restricted to this. It's not written that way, right?
But
so
it is written with man.
Right. So like you're saying, it's written, yeah. I think it's written with the forethought of society will change.
Yeah.
And based on that, this is why the language is generic. And maybe in that aspect, if they were forward-looking enough, they were able to see that the really, really jacked up ways of living of that time were obviously already being, I'm gonna say eroded, but not in a bad way. They were being changed.
Yeah.
So beliefs and things were eroding away. They were falling away and changing. So they could see that basically writing on the wall that we need to stay in this generic language because the world is going to change, and that's what makes these documents stay as evergreen as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Because those two documents aren't meant to be screwed with that often.
No.
And that's where the general light.
But when it makes sense, it should be.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. But that's where the generic language is also a benefit too. It's also a point of argument and contention depending on what the topic is.
Yeah.
For sure. So let's hope. Let's move it. Let's carry the Taco Bell. I think Taco Bell is doing more virtue signaling than actual action.
Define virtual signaling.
It's a preference of those companies to keep doing business in the way they already do.
Mm-hmm.
But if they don't throw their hands up to whatever the current culture is doing, regardless of their preference for or against it, if they don't step in line, cancel culture will step in for them, and it hurts them in the one place they care about the most, and the only place they truly care about the most. And that's
unless you're Chick-fil-A.
Unless you're Chick-fil-A. Unless you're Chick-fil-A. Because I mean, if I can't look at these companies now and see them going, "Hey, we're for this, and we are for it, and we totally believe it." And I'm like, "Wow! All of a sudden, you guys have done an about face. Does this mean you're going to take care of your employees and come up with a better wage, even though the minimum wage is $7.25 in some states? Does this mean you're going to look at providing some type of insurance? Are you going to provide folks with the time off that they need? We're in a different world before than we ever were before, right?
Mm-hmm.
Are they doing any of that? Hell no. They're making tweets on the internet saying, we love y'all and we support you. But nothing else is changing. So it makes it hard for me to trust a single company's efforts to do it.
I don't necessarily agree with a living wage.
Well, not even in that aspect, but that's what I'm saying. Are we going to look at something that's beneficial? I mean, we talk about living wage, and regardless of what that number actually is, look at some companies. Like Bill Miller's employees are $10 an hour from the onset.
Mm-hmm.
That's not chump change above the minimum wage. That's a decent salary. And there's actually some other ones here in restaurants, and there's some smaller businesses that do it. But what I'm looking at is these larger corporations that are doing their damnedest to make sure they get a tweet out, or make sure they get a Facebook post out, or make sure they get an Instagram post out with somebody sponsored underneath it type of thing. That's where all their efforts are. But what's changing on the employee side? What's happening internally? Because if you're truly as righteous as you say you're going to be in your 240 characters, then your public changes would be visible. There's the changes.
Well, now they can wear Black Lives Matter masks at work.
But why they discriminate? Why they discriminate against other employees who want to wear a different mask?
Well, then I don't know.
That's what I mean. But you see, that's what I mean by that.
But are they?
We won't know, right?
Yeah.
There's got to be the one brave employee who's going to be like, I'm going to wear a Stone Cold Steve Austin mask to work. And if they tell him no, he's not wearing anything hateful.
Mm-hmm.
He's not wearing anything religious. which you can't discriminate against anyway, right?
In fact,
So,
Stone Cold is for Black Lives Matter, so.
exactly. I mean, the meme stuff that they have out on his quote's pretty neat. But let's say they wear that, or they wear an Undertaker mask, right?
Mm-hmm.
Some wrestling hero, some other thing. Is Taco Bell going to say, you got to take off that mask, while the employee next to them is wearing a BLM mask? So that's what I mean by that kind of virtual, like, virtue signaling in a way. They're worried more about puffing up their reputation than they are actually making actions towards doing it.
But what if, like, their competitor?
Inaction.
But here's the thing: what if their competitor is sponsoring, like, wrestling in some way?
So we're going to fire the employee because KFC is actually supporting WWF and you wore the wrong mask to work?
Yeah.
So we're in the same situation.
Well, they're the same company,
off that mask.
So it doesn't matter. Or is it? Yeah, KFC is the same company, isn't it?
They're all the same now, I think.
They're all Taco Bell.
Can't you go to a KFC, Taco Bell, Long John Silver's, A&W, Root Beer, Pizza Hut, and something else all within the same building nowadays?
Yeah.
It's like...
And they all dispense Pepsi.
So there it is. That's it. Pepsi is Satan. We're done. We've solved all the problems.
There we go.
But that's I mean, dude, when you say virtue signal, people really kind of freak out. But it makes it difficult for me to make that argument too, because I can't say what is a meaningful change by a large corporation in practice versus a 240 character tweet.
Mm-hmm.
What does that look like? Do you have any ideas?
Well,
I don't know if I do. That's
I know at my company they did a really good job, and they really it was very heartfelt, and they brought in and they did a big, huge like video conference on Zoom. And our CEO was talking about, I was like, I have these friends that work with me that I've never asked him, like, about Black Lives Matter. Or I never asked him what it was like to be a black man in America. And, and it just kind of gave you perspective of what people of color have gone through over the years, just for the single thing of their skin being a different color than everybody else's.
So our company did the same. Something very similar. Something very quickly came out. That's one of the reasons I like the CEO that we have, and the previous CEO, is their emails and their conversations are on the surface very frank. It doesn't look like it's been crafted as much, you know what I mean? It doesn't look like somebody else put it doesn't look like a presidential speech where somebody else wrote it and they signed off on it. So that's a good thing on both the CEOs that we're connected to now. And then the company did the same thing around putting those meetings together and having those trying to have those conversations. Specifically asking members of the company, what has your path been like? And that's interesting because it does provide a voice, not only for the person that's speaking, but it provides a voice that we probably never heard either. We haven't heard that position. We have a couple of different, I would say, acquaintances, because it's not like we all hang out all the time, but we have a different number of acquaintances and colleagues that we've worked with. And I bet you still we would only, even if we thought about all the different times and interactions we have, we might not even come to the level of an inkling of one instance or issue that they had run into. And that it's just strong people. The people I'm thinking of, very strong individuals in themselves. So our company did that as well, and they're keeping that conversation going. Like we're going to have these types of meetings. We're going to welcome that conversation.
Yeah. In that aspect, I think it's going well, but is this happening at Taco Bell? Is this happening at KFC? Is it happening at Pizza Hut? I don't know.
Was it a CEO packaged box sent out from the right group that says, "Hey, CEOs, if you craft it along this form letter, you should probably be okay. And your company should probably have these meetings." I don't think that's the case. That's just dark, stupid conspiracy fun. But
But these CEOs, they're not actors. These CEOs are not actors, and this, what I saw of this was very heartfelt, was very raw, was very real.
Yeah.
And
that's the difference between the email and having these meetings that we have with them, is we're seeing them at least being human.
Yeah.
And it's not in as so much a prepared statement type of mentality, because even in our meetings, I wonder if it was similar with y'all's. They're not, this is going to sound wrong, but you'll understand what I mean. They're not prepared, or prepped. It's probably a better word.
Right.
They're not prepped in it, but they are real.
Genuine.
Yeah. There we go. Genuine. Yeah. And bringing those conversations up. So seeing it from that high level, which was nice, because I know for a good number of years for us in a corporate environment, everything was screaming up to the top. We never really saw the action start up and come down.
Until COVID.
COVID was probably a very good example of it. But even prior to COVID, in my new world, the voice from the top down has always been present. It's a very nice change to what I'm used to. But I have a lot of things to shed too. I'm still. How many times have we, in our time frame of working at any company, get the "You're free to voice your opinion. There is no retaliation. That's not what we do here," and you report that. How well, based on past experiences, not now, not in the past 3 to 5 years, has that felt like a trustworthy thing you could do?
Oh, even last year it didn't feel trustworthy.
Right, and that would be on topics that were, I'm going to say, almost normal, right?
Yeah.
Just normally sucky, probably. Now we have an even more high vis and volatile topic that's been a presence throughout our entire lives, and it's, hey, come into the conversation. That's going to be hard for a lot of people to do.
Yeah. But talking about volatile, Chaz in Seattle.
Yeah, that place is getting a little crazy. I've heard rumors of so it's essentially an on-police zone.
Yeah.
The media has shown everything from AR-15 toting guys who look like they're dressed up in the Antifa starter kit. It's like black hoodie, black mask, black jeans, black backpack, and all this is, I mean, it does. It looks like one of those really bad starter kit memes on Facebook. Antifa starter kit, AR-15, black mask, and sunglasses. And there's 10 or 20 of them. As soon as they start getting media attention, these guys don't physically exist anymore. So it has an air of a protected image. Everything's great in the Chaz. No, we're not armed and Antifa and any of the bad things.
Well, I think I heard one thing that in 48 hours they ran out of food.
It was like a 6-block radius, but isn't it also been reduced in size too? It's down to apparently 3 blocks, but still has the Seattle Police Department East Precinct over there still under their control, and apparently being run by. This is the greatest thing ever. You're supposed to be a peaceful zone, but your key spokesperson is labeled a warlord. Which all I think at that point is like, I'm waiting for Max Payne. Not even Mad Max. I'm waiting for Mad
Yeah,
Max
Mad
to like be
Max.
standing on the corner type of thing, or flaming guitars at the end of a diesel or something, because it's like it's a warlord. But it's, to be honest, I think there's a fear amongst law enforcement and leadership in Seattle. Dude, you and we didn't serve, right? I didn't serve in the military.
No.
I've got some friends who have and were deployed and have seen things that those folks hopefully, I mean, absolute respect for our military.
Yeah.
But
I've had cousins.
Urban combat in that section, could you imagine that trying to be handled by street cops to retake that zone? For what other reason than to try and squash something? That's not normal. That's not cool. And President Trump says we should, and I'm not trying to pick on that, but him saying y'all should take back your city kind of thing too.
I don't think it would be very hard to take back Seattle.
I don't know if it wouldn't be hard. I just don't think it would be wise. I don't think, if you look at leadership and you look at police, and then the one I tie into is the I'm going to say it completely wrong, but the Malheur National Wildlife Refuge, where landowners and everything, they'd taken that place, and they were peaceful.
Yeah,
they didn't do anything. They were armed, which we know from photographs and inside and outside of Chaz. There are plenty of members within Chaz that are also armed.
Yeah,
and they tried to force retaking of that facility, and it wound up in all sorts of loss of life and some people surrendering. So if we look at what would
just
be
like
the
what happened
benefit
in
of
Waco
that?
too.
Right. Look at that's also a very decent example. So what is the benefit of trying to retake Chaz? Is there really any value to it?
Not if they're not creating any issues for the people that are living there.
That's the one report that we see, that apparently there's some rapes and robberies they've received 3 times the number of phone calls from within Chaz. But police cannot, or are not, I'm not going to say cannot, are not entering Chaz, so they can't even respond to these calls. So is this a free and autonomous zone? Or is this a crime-ridden little area under the guise of, hey, we're free, we're autonomous?
But we also have to realize, it's being stated. How do we know that's the truth of what's happening there? Are they being peaceful or are they not? Are these crimes happening there, or are they not? I'm not there. I don't know.
Yeah, so all we have is probably the worst resource in America, media. Yeah. And what's being reported by the police, which hopefully we would hope that their narrative and what they're trying to promote is an accurate representation. It's easy enough to just look. You can I bet you it wouldn't happen for a while, but I think you can do public information requests for 911 records. And then you'd be able to look.
Yeah.
This number the 911 call came from within this triangular cell tower area, or it came within, I don't even know if you can do that. But
if that's the case, they should protect the people that live in there.
At that point, the citizenry is crime. So that's the other aspect of this is, okay, so let's say we're not taking it by force. And I don't say we, let's say that Seattle decides that they're not going to take it by force. So what are they even looking to accomplish? The demands, 30 demands. Abolition of the Seattle Police Department and the court system, defunding the SPD and reallocating those funds to the community health, banning police use of firearms, batons, and riot shields. That's not going to happen. And chemical agents. That should happen. Immediately releasing prisoners serving time for marijuana-related offenses. I think that's actually attainable, which we had talked about California doing something similar. But it's dependent on the crime attached to the marijuana type of thing.
Right.
That's a whole nother topic on that aspect. Marijuana-related offenses or resisting arrest with expungement of their records. Mandatory retrials for people of color who are serving sentences for violent crimes and prison abolition. Other demands included reforming education to increase the focus on Black and Native American history, free college, free public housing, and supposedly there was an internal debate within the area. I'm pulling some of this stuff from Wikipedia. There's reportedly an internal debate in the area over how many demands the commune should be putting forward, as some believe it's the start of a larger revolution, while others believe police brutality should stay the main focus. So that's the demand.
Mm-hmm.
And what's the? I mean, we see the demands. Right?
I really wish
turnaround. What are you? If I, the city of Seattle, meet your demands, what are you doing for me? That's how this works, right? It's a trade. Do you release the Chaz? Do you walk away and the police retake their SPD precinct? I mean, or is it gimme, 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 and y'all get nothing back and we keep the Chaz? I don't think that works.
Yeah. I mean, it comes down to the people. That city needs to protect their people. First and foremost.
Yeah, that's the curiosity. Is it's the people within the zone. Are they able to speak to it, to what's really going on?
Are they happy about it?
You can see quotes, right? And you see
Yeah.
quotes of people saying, "Oh, please only use my first name because I don't want to be retaliated against for speaking to the press."
Right.
Whether the person's like, I mean, it's not like there's ID cards saying Chaz, population person number 3. You have no way of identifying who's actually speaking on behalf of, aside from the current resident warlord. I don't know what else you would call him, right? Leader, Chaz leader. Sounds a little bit better than warlord. There's weird.
Chaz president.
Chaz president.
President of the United Chaz.
United Chaz. Gonna screen print some shirts like that. President of the United Chaz. Actually, on some of the bunkers, or not the bunkers, the barricades and barriers that they have at the entrances have "You are now leaving America," or "You're now leaving the United States." Okay. Not sure what that means.
So they're seceding from the United States?
So if you enter the Chaz and you commit a crime, are you then subject to whatever legal system they have drawn up in their heads within the Chaz? And then you exit the Chaz, are you then under the crime statutes applied to America? Chaz is not really a sovereign territory. It's U.S. soil. Owned, occupied, and executed under the laws thereof, right? Not that I'm thinking about cruising up to Chaz to throw any crimes down or anything.
Yeah. I don't know, but I don't think that the United States government should go in. I think Seattle needs to take care of it.
That's the scariest part of this, though. As far as Trump's blowharding about, oh, well, if you don't take it back, we will. His willingness to use U.S. military on U.S. soil against U.S. citizens is a crime.
Well, he's taken off his generals.
But he's also, so this is one thing we know he's good at, because he's obviously done it to stay somehow above board while he bankrupts an absolute massive crapload of businesses and starts them and fails them, starts them and fails them. He understands loopholes. So then he just activates the guard.
Yeah.
Which the guard can do something within that state, but I believe that still has to be activated by the governor of that state. And assistance still needs to be requested by that governor. But then it's like we said, what is taking back physical, a force on force altercation for 3 blocks unless the people are screaming for it to happen just doesn't seem sound. Suzuki.
Yeah, we take out the warlord. I'm not taking him out, but arrest him.
Okay, I was going to say, we're going to go back to some Napoleon-esque type stuff. Take out the generals and the army will fall. That's the other question, is how much of that is...
A coup in Chaz.
Right, dude. If we could put, we still need to craft our tinfoil hats so we can switch the show over at some point and just travel down conspiracies for fun, because that's definitely one of those interesting pieces.
I don't know that it'll last long. All you have to do is just cut off deliveries there.
But at that point, so what was the actual establishment date? Established June 8th. So we're 10 days in. It's not a lot of time.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see how long it goes.
Yeah.
Let me take a look. January. So it was near a month, actually. So the Malheur National Wildlife Refuge, when it was taken over, was occupied from January 2nd all the way through February 11th. So it had been not well over, but a good chunk over a month.
Right.
And then it looked at force.
Mm-hmm.
What is of value in the Chaz? The wildlife refuge is actually it's a government facility. It's not state facility. If I believe it was actually U.S. Is it U.S. Parks? What is it? Yeah, National Wildlife Refuge. So that's on federal.
Mm-hmm.
And that was one of the reasons they actually targeted it, because it was the Land Bureau pulling tricks and crappery. Which at that point you can see the use of force. But what are the strategic? I mean, even taking back the wildlife refuge had no strategic value to the members of that area to justify an armed conflict to do it. So what is in the Chaz? Is there anything within the Chaz that would justify armed conflict? Power station under control. A major city chunk of power infrastructure under control. That would probably put you on the, hey, we got to take that back real quick.
Yeah.
Hostage negotiation style cutoffs, like you were mentioning. Stop all delivery, which to be honest, I bet you a lot of the delivery companies are already looking at that, going, man, there's too much risk in that. So no. Not accepting deliveries in there. So I could see that coming just in a natural process.
So then that would bring this to a close here pretty quickly.
They are doing a lot of their own gardening.
Mm-hmm.
But you would have to stop the movement of U.S. citizens in and out of the Chaz.
Yeah.
Because then you're just looking at what for lack of a better term, would be the movement of contraband.
Mm-hmm.
No food can go in and out. Or can go in and out, and then you've got somebody who's smuggling seeds in.
Yeah.
We're going to look at a Berlin Wall situation. East Berlin, West Berlin. We're just going to wall in the Chaz. And then we go into this really weird autonomous zone, for sure, with no police presence. All right, so hope for the safety of the people that are in it, those who were part of making it happen, hope safety for them. But those who were already there and found themselves essentially surrounded by
just drafted into it, yeah.
Yeah. Hi, welcome to the Chaz. I'm your new neighbor. What? Yeah.
You're now the citizen of Chaz.
Exactly. It's like, okay.
Come on, you know.
Shall I get off my car?
Don't you watch the news?
Yeah. Have you been checking that out? We're on Channel 8 right now. See that guy? We'll have to see. I mean, but we would hope that there definitely wouldn't be.
Cut off their internet.
That's another aspect. That's definitely that's the police state in action, though.
Yeah.
The blocking of communication, use of excessive surveillance. It actually
But
plays into their arguments.
Does everybody in that area want that?
Do they want the autonomous zone to stay as it is? Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
I guess if you don't, you can leave. We shall see. Yeah. We shall definitely see. Well, that was plenty of way too much heavy crap for what was supposed to wind up being a light week. I mean, I still think we hit our topics and we covered the knowledge we had on them. Mm-hmm. We played devil's advocate for both sides of any argument as best we can.
We do have one more topic that we kind of want to address here with the Aunt Jemima and Uncle Ben's.
Yeah, I think that ties us back somewhat to well, I guess we should cover what it is, right?
Yeah.
So essentially, actually, I kind of want to pull it up again because Aunt Jemima pancake batter, they're actually owned by Pepsi, and they came out recently. Yeah, now they came out saying, "Hey, we're going to change our whole branding. We're going to remove Aunt Jemima," because I think somebody had posted like a meme that they replaced Aunt Jemima with a symbol of like Black Lives Matter. It was memey and it wasn't real polite to say the least. Mm-hmm. But they're screaming, "Hey, we're gonna change we're changing all our branding right now."
Yeah.
And they're looking at doing it. Uncle Ben's, on the other hand, says we're gonna change our branding. We know it's bad. We're just not sure how we're gonna do it yet. Which to me even worse is a virtue signal. It's like, hey, we're not actually making anything happen, but just so you guys don't stop buying
Spider-Man like crying. That could be Uncle Ben's.
That's Uncle Ben's.
Like crying.
Nothing but a crying Spider-Man. Uncle Ben. There's so many people who have no idea about that right now, and they're going, what are they talking about? So Uncle Ben's Rice and Mrs. Butterworth's Syrup announced plans to change their logos. Mrs. Butterworth's too? What? Okay. Well, no, that kind of goes to, because you have Uncle Ben's who also carries cream of wheat, which cream of wheat and maple brown sugar. You have the Black Chef.
Yeah.
So I guess that's what they're looking at, is changing the chef, maybe?
They're gonna whitewash it?
Or are they just removing the logo? You know, there's a very familiar argument here, right? One that's already been made for many, many years with our great virtue signaling NFL. How long do you think it'll take? Uncle Ben's yanked the logo, the person off of the box, right? Mm-hmm. Aunt Jemima is no longer...
Well, Aunt Jemima already changed the lady that was on there. The initial lady that they had was an older black lady with like...
Yeah, she was a real woman, actually. I had her name here. I'm sorry. Mm-hmm. And I want to say her name specifically. This is going to sound like this is a horrible way to attach it, but it's like the Dread Pirate Roberts with Aunt Jemima. Mm-hmm. They had a lady who would continuously travel through things like populating the... basically selling it in a way over and over again. 1890, Nancy Green. She was a former slave, was hired to be the spokesperson for Aunt Jemima brand food products. I'm pulling this from blackamericaweb.com. Mm-hmm. Nancy Green was born into slavery in 1834 in Montgomery County, Kentucky. Wow, I don't know why I went to Alabama. In 1889, the creators of Aunt Jemima, Charles Rutt and Charles Underwood, sold the company to R.T. Davis, who soon found Nancy Green in Chicago, and the previous owners had already agreed upon her look of a bandana and apron. Davis combined the Aunt Jemima look with the catchy tune from the vaudeville circuit to make the Aunt Jemima brand. After Green's passing, the owner experienced some financial issues, and then they sold over to Quaker Oats. Anna Robinson was the following image was changed. She was the new, and then next was the Chicago blues singer and actress Edith Wilson.
Mm-hmm.
First Aunt Jemima to appear in the television commercials. So let's go. Let's travel down this path. So okay, the branding in itself starts in times of slavery.
Right.
And that's not accurate. That's not an accurate statement at all.
It happens after it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Wasn't it like in the 50s?
I saw this was, let's see, 1889 creators of Aunt Jemima. So 1889.
1889?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, slavery abolished.
1863.
Yeah, 1862, 1863. So you look at 1869, and then this, because I've seen some Instagram posts and tweets and things talking about how the image of Aunt Jemima is the hearkening back to those good old slave days, is one of the things that people feel was the original creation of the image. Whether that's truthful or not, we wouldn't be able to, the guys who owned it in 1889 aren't going to pop up and tell us. But if we erase, so let's erase these images, right? Let's just change our branding. Is Aunt Jemima pancake mix and Aunt Jemima syrup the same without without that image of the various women who have portrayed the character?
Well, it's the same stuff.
Right. So, what if you go 20 years down the road?
Alexa, stop.
What was she going to tell us about?
About something about free stuff.
Oh, okay. She wants free stuff.
I don't know how that came up.
But if we look at, let's take the branding of Aunt Jemima and remove the character image and go 20 years down the road.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully the conversation at that point is vastly different. But they've actually said they were going to change the name and the image. Mm-hmm. So what I was kind of alluding to is if we do this with Uncle Ben's does it and Aunt Jemima does it, and I can see them doing it. The only reason I lean into it not having as much weight as it truly could is because of when it's being done. The upheaval in America, the voices that are now being heard, the Black Lives Matter movement getting the position that it needs in some of the highest visible portions of the American stage. And now they're like, hey, we're going to change our branding. Why didn't you change it last year? If you felt, because they write these grandiose statements saying, we recognize that our logo is racist and bad. You recognize that now? Hot damn, you've been enlightened. Why now? Because it
well, it was, but is it now?
What do you mean? Say that. What do you mean?
Is the logo racist now?
That's. I mean, it's still the same. I mean, it's still the same stuff, but it's them saying that they.
Well,
feel
it's a
that
black woman with Aunt Jemima on as the logo.
Right. So that's what I'm saying is the value of the change. If they changed 2 years ago,
mm-hmm.
That's a statement. Nothing else in the world is driving them to this action.
I don't see the point in changing it in the first place. Why is taking a black woman off of something that's very recognizable? I haven't heard anyone talking about, hey, take Aunt Jemima out ever.
There's been some voices around it recently, people saying it, and I think
recently,
it's because they look at
recently,
it.
but before I've never heard that.
She's portrayed in a servitude position of servitude. Which is a very nice way of saying a delayed way of slavery.
She was.
But the converted image now, you don't think
represents that. It looks more like a businesswoman.
See, this is what's actually funny. Not funny. But interesting. For my final senior project for design, I did a history of people of color and how it affects how it was portrayed in graphic design. That was one of my projects. It was actually my idea for a thesis if I continued on to a graphic design master's about how color is still used in advertising, people of colors, how it's used in advertising around the world. Because in different portions of the world, in the United States, it appears very racist because you have predominantly white audiences and predominantly white presentation in advertising. And then depending on who the target audience was. And if you look at other parts of the world, it's a completely flipped coin to the fact that Brazil was one of the key ones that actually came up in all of my searches all the time. Is the lighter your skin is in Brazil, the more you're looked down upon. So it's one of the things I looked at it as being a kind of a thesis thing. But I'm telling you, this argument was specifically.
I'm looking at some of the logos. Yeah, they were pretty bad back in the day. They were pretty bad. They were very racist back in the day.
Yeah, when you do
an image search for Aunt Jemima.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Yeah, when you go back, they were bad.
Yeah. Yeah, you go really. This gets into that era of some very offensive things. Even like we were watching a movie last night, and I don't know if there's an appropriate name for it, so I'm going to say what I've always heard it is to be the yard jockey.
Mm-hmm.
That has also been in a very kind of offensive stuff.
Right.
But these going back, this is definitely. I wish it had the year on it. But I mean, with them, like we said, with them looking at it now. They did change the image, but here's what I look at the image that they have now. When was that changed? When was that change actually made?
Wasn't it done in like the 90s?
I hadn't even noticed.
I think they changed it in the 90s.
For me, that change would have been something, and that image, looking at, and that's why I talked about
because now it's an image of a black woman with a white collar and like pearl earrings.
Right, and in the reason I brought up the projects and the potential for the master's thesis was the fact that image is very 70s-esque illustrated. I'll show you some 70s advertisement stuff. Actually, 50s.
Yeah.
Probably 50s advertisement.
Probably closer to 50s. I was going to say 50s.
Yeah. So in that, I think they missed the mark on progressing forward always, of showing the milestones that have been accomplished in a way, right? Mm-hmm. Granted, society hasn't moved the needle that far. We're perfectly aware of that in the conversations. But they missed the mark in the opportunity to do that here. And in a way to keep themselves from becoming a part of cancel culture, in a way, a victim of it. It almost seems like
so let's kind of show what it is now. That's what it is now.
You're on the box, right?
Yeah, right in front of us.
Yeah, I think that's very much still a 50s image. What about the name itself? Yeah, I mean, there's some old ads that fit the time frame and the language there, but what is the... I guess I'd have to ask somebody with a little more knowledge to it than I would, looking at how
many people are named Jemima? I don't know.
Yeah, and well, that's what I mean. Is the use of this name in this manner derogatory? Is it intended as derogatory? I can't answer that. I'm just kind of putting it
I
out there.
think
Does
initially it
contribute
was.
to it?
I think initially it was. I don't know necessarily derogatory.
Could be a wrong word, maybe offensive.
Yeah,
I don't know.
offensive maybe more. But and it's kind of is it now intended to be offensive? I don't think so. Because if that was the case, then it wouldn't be Aunt Jemima anymore.
So
back in the day, it was a different time, and society felt it was okay to display images how they were displaying images.
Do you think that image, though? I mean, regardless, do you think that image has its place today? The new one, even.
The new one, even?
Yeah. The previous one, I would say.
I think it's old. I think it's
new
old,
one.
but you have Chef Boyardee, which has had Chef Boyardee on there for ages.
When did they finally remove him? He is off, right?
Is he off
the cans? So let's twist this argument, because another well-known candidate that I think also is doing a little bit of their own kind of virtue
signaling.
Off. No, so he's still there, but also he's
still there.
He's
a white guy.
Supposed to be an Italian or something, I believe. But this same argument's going on for a long time with the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
Kansas City Chiefs, not so bad.
Mm-hmm.
Washington Redskins. People have been screaming for that name to change since I was a kid.
Yeah.
And then Atlanta Braves. Another one. Baseball, not NFL. But so is that how long then? These companies do this. What is it? I mean, does it signal? And I'm not arguing against it. I'm just saying.
But doesn't this come on the same? This came after HBO decided to not show Gone with the Wind on HBO Max.
Yeah, but they weren't like totally pulling it.
No, they're going to put it back in with kind of like caveats on there, like they should do with like Looney Tunes.
Dude, Elmer Fudd and his gun. I mean, come on. I can understand. So you know what? Let's go that path then, right?
Mm-hmm.
Contains violence, nudity, and smoking, which is apparently the thing that just cracks me the hell up, is the fact that it has to have that prefix in it.
Yeah.
So now we're going to have that same caveat that this has violence, nudity, and portrays slavery.
Mm-hmm.
Or what else would it be? What else? How would we make that statement at the beginning of a film? Because obviously the what does this mean for future films?
That you need a caveat for every film?
Well, do you make the film? You're a white producer. Do you even make the film because your concerns of cancel culture? Even though you're going to have the prefix and the stars are buying in on it and they love the story. We're not talking about Tropic Thunder kind of stuff either.
Yeah.
I'm just talking about a white producer telling a story from the perspective of a person of color. Can you tell that story anymore? Or are you just going to face cancel culture? People just screaming. You're white, you can't say that. You're Hispanic, you can't understand a black person's problem. You are not Hispanic. You are not black. You are not whatever. So therefore, you cannot.
But here's the thing about writers: you write what you know, and that's what comes out the best. You write what you know.
Yeah, so that's from a writer's perspective. But most of the movies we run into are a writer's efforts, then turned into a probably badly butchered screenplay that is then taken over by a producer who hopes to bring it to life. So I think what we're getting at is and we've stepped on both sides of the fence together for the arguments for, the arguments against, but it's the conversations that we're having that seem to be focused in one area have far-reaching implications, which is a good thing. But how far we allow those as a society in general, regardless of skin tones and attitudes and whatever, how far we allow those to go to affect us is a dangerous thing, because it plays also into the free speech of things. And you and I have said it plenty of times. If somebody wants to say something really stupid at the top of their lungs, let them say it, because you don't want to hear it. You might not like hearing it, but now you know that that's what that idiot thinks.
Yeah.
And you're able to make a judgment for it. We open ourselves up to a dangerous level of society, because those who don't feel that they can yell the right things at the top of their lungs, or the dumbest things at the top of their lungs, will then only do it in the shadows. And then when it comes to light, it's in a much more volatile way, or less controllable way, or horrible way, for crying out loud. If they change, if the branding is making,
and that's what creates systemic racism.
I can't tie those two together. I don't know how you're tying them together.
Because you're going through, and it's systemic in the fact that it's trying to be hidden, yet it's still there systemically.
I think that's reaching. I still can't tie it together. I don't want to have you re-explain it. I'm trying to just kind of to see how you're connecting it, but I'm not able to connect it.
Because you're suppressing it. It's being suppressed. If you let people say what they're going to say, they can get it out, and then you can know who they are, and you know who to stay away from.
Right, which right now some of the
and you know what
voices,
companies to stay away from.
Exactly. But right now, that's one of the other hypocrisies of this, is some of the loudest voices that we currently hear want to be able to be heard. At the same time, they turn around and silence others. Whether you yourself cannot stand at a podium and scream of your beliefs while trying to silence those who are making voices that you A, don't like, or B, disagree with, or hell, they're even completely wrong. That still doesn't permit a person to try and silence someone else, regardless of the good, the bad, and the ugly. So that's why I also,
unless it's inciting harm on other people.
No, let some jackass scream a vile threat out loud, because at that point you've entered yourself into criminal paths. If you make a volatile threat to someone's life or person of any way, shape, and form, that is how our laws are supposed to be able to step in and say something, right? Or you identify that, that dude's crazy. Let's make sure it's known, type of thing. What is somebody who's threatening? How do people benefit from not knowing of someone who is threatening? The problem with our current society and our current networking and our current media and our current social media avenues is, and this is where it's difficult, is yes, you want to point out those that are volatile, right? Or dangerous. But in the current meaning lifetime, my lifetime, because we've seen it from, you and I have gone from sliding a slider and being the physical remote control for our parents to everything in the palm of our hands. Is the condemnation of someone happens online, and because of how something moves, the validity of the condemnation cannot carry any value. Yet young people are so tied into their social media that they take that word of a blue check mark, so to speak, as confirmation that what they're saying is accurate, when we've known and seen all too many times.
But what I'm saying is, when you see somebody inciting violence, that they should be shut down. The police should go after them if they're That's what I was talking about. Yeah.
We didn't tie that connection all the way in, but no, that makes absolute sense. But it's also the, you remember, so we have a very different society to where when we were teenagers we could yell, "I'm going to beat your ass" to somebody.
Right.
But it didn't mean it was going to happen.
Right.
This day and age, like we talked about before, it's been turned into pre-crime. You said you were going to beat his ass on Twitter. That will haunt you for the next 25 years. So then you change.
You get in trouble at school if you like put two sticks together and say, "Oh, look, I have a gun."
Yeah.
Oh, it's a stick. We used to play with the sticks when we were kids all the time and say they were guns, even at school.
Yeah, we used to chase each other around the playground. It's definitely a changed world. But that's where that's why I lean into the free speech aspect of things, is because, face it, our education system is trash. Not the educators themselves, and not a lot of the content they're teaching, but the infrastructure within our educational environment is trash. It's more about controlling than it is about educating. So any free speech resource, and it plays back to your comment of critical thinking, any free speech resource needs to be allowed their position to speak from whatever platform it is. So Facebook cutting something off or Twitter cutting something off, sure, you might be silencing that voice, but they're going to be found. They're going to get that voice out. And then that comes to the person that hears it, is hopefully blessed with some decent critical thinking, to listen to a few of it and go, "Wow, this is some BS," and then they're able to mentally silence it.
Right. It's better to be out in the open than to be out in the open and know, than to suppress it, which over the years that speech has been suppressed. So now these underlying thoughts that created the systemic racism that we have in our society now is what you get when you do that.
Well, the other aspect is just the fact of cancel culture. Right? I mean, they said something I don't like. I have 10,000 followers. We're going to jump on them. They said something that doesn't fit the popular narrative of what's being reported in the media, or they just questioned it, and their true intention is, I want to be more educated, but we don't take it that way. We take it as an attack on the narrative, or screaming that the narrative is
but that's when we need to talk.
Right.
That's when we go down and start talking again, and then kind of learning from each other. It comes back to educating each other again. I mean, I say that a lot, but
a lot of the education is just not in the school. It's got to be people.
It's got to be in the home.
The home is definitely part of it, but it's also needs to be that ability to have that conversation.
The first people that are going to mold your mind are your parents.
Yeah. Which, unfortunately, even for the parents, depends on what circles of influence they've had in their own lives on what they can actually teach.
Yeah. As you get out there, I was lucky as a kid to to have my mom be into art. I was named after Vincent van Gogh. And a lot of people don't realize that, but I am. Even some people in my family.
Gonna take off an ear.
Yeah.
Don't tempt me. Don't tempt me. You're like, I don't know. It depends. There was a guy I used to watch, and his whole. Oh, actually, no. There it is. I used to hear it on a Travel Channel show, but this is one of my to-do reads. Is just stuff from Mark Twain. But travel is fatal to prejudice, bigotry, and narrow-mindedness. And many of our people need it sorely on these accounts. Broad, wholesome, charitable views of men and things that cannot be acquired by vegetating in one little corner of earth all one's lifetime, which is really profound. From actually the history of Mark Twain is a little bit checkered in its own aspect of things too. So, but it's still a valid statement. It still plays true today. It's that type of travel. So. Yeah. Damn. Deep Thursdays, man.
Wow. Yeah.
We've got to.
I didn't think we were gonna go this deep, but we did.
The thing is, it's like I think we keep diving into the different surface of the pool, but we still wind up in the same deep end of one big volume. We come back to education. We come back to the maintenance of free speech. We come back to some of the bits in the laws. There's still some things we question each other on. We don't disagree, but we just question our ties to it. So that's probably the questions, the enjoyable conversation pieces. But we are...
And how it always ends up coming back to being educated about everything.
So now...
And not necessarily educated, oh yeah, I go to college and I have a PhD. No, just like talking, knowing other things about people.
So we've done something we've done through our entire corporate. We've done part of things we've done every year in our corporate stuff. We pointed out something that we feel is a root cause of an issue, and we have a suggestion of what we think could be a solution to it. So now the question is, what can we say or do or participate in that would turn the tide of those things that we see as part of the problem? And how do we do it in the right way? So that's probably another step we need to converse on.
That's a whole other show, probably 5 shows.
That's guests and other people to speak with too, and see where they're at. So. Maybe that's our next branch, is have we talked to ourselves based on the topics. I mean, we have a new headline pretty much every week in this same topic. So are we now to the point of a guest? Because you and I have shown our perspectives. We've shown our influences, our history. We're circling back to the same things. So who went offline? Obviously, we're not going to say anybody right now because we're not putting anybody on the spot for it. But who within our circle of friends, influences, and colleagues do we tap on the shoulder and say, we want your perspective?
I think we already have one, and I think we're on the same boat.
I mean, we
haven't even spoken the name, but I think we know.
Well, not even in that. I'm just
about,
looking at. We have several. I mean, we have a very deep pool of friends and acquaintances. But now it's like we need that perspective.
Yeah.
And it needs to be across the spectrum in the same way. Because we need that perspective. And the thing is, this is the difficulty, is we don't have the luxury of us having a conversation at the bar, having a conversation in our living rooms. We're taking a big risk by even though we play devil's advocate to both sides of things, anything we say on here can be taken out of context. So when we bring whoever that other guest is, we have to make sure that they have a comfort level in that, because it's not like we're not even protected. And as such, we try and balance our language to maintain our own protections.
Yeah. I think we do a good job at that.
Yeah, I think we do. Hopefully we never have to find out that we don't. Or we just get.
But then it comes back to education. Like, tell us what we're wrong about.
Yeah, exactly.
Because this is just a learning experience for both of us.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. We're able to have this conversation and step in and say this is, because I mean, I think you and I have had we haven't changed each other's minds on different things, but we've definitely splintered the thinking out into accepting more perspectives of different topics.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not like we're really far off base on the things we agree on anyway.
Not usually. Not usually.
There's not a
every once in a while
divide in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of a benefit to us as well. But yeah, let's look at that. I think we are on a hiatus.
Yeah, I think we're gonna do a hiatus. I'm going on an awesome vacation, so that'll be some fun.
Yeah, definitely. So we will be looking 3 weeks, 2 weeks out, and coming back onto the 3rd. So that would. I haven't back. I am coming back. I will be back on the 9th. Yeah. No. Wait. No, I'll be back on the. Oh yeah, that's right. The next time we'll be back is the 9th. That works out.
Because the 25th, the 2nd, and then the 9th. July 9th.
That works out. Folks get to see what the world does around an Independence Day in a country that's kind of in turmoil.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, then we'll come back in on the 9th and we'll see what's happening those 2 weeks, see what we can put together and chat.
And I'll tell you what I experienced on my cross-country trip.
Yeah, I don't want to see you on YouTube with man gets too close to bison, bison reacts negatively. So let's avoid that. Yeah. If not, just make sure you give me the right so I can make it go viral and we'll cut the checks.
That'll be sweet.
Right? I don't wish anything dangerous on you, but if you do, make sure it goes viral.
Next on Pinche and The Gringo.
Next, yeah, definitely not. That's cool, man. Hopefully we'll have some folks that will chime in on their own comments, give us their perspectives. We're good.
Yeah, let us know. Thanks for checking us out. If you haven't subscribed, please click on that subscribe button and hit that notification button to tell you the next time we go live.
Yeah, all the things at once. Subscribe, like a bell thingy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and leave comments, and then we'll answer your stuff when we can. But I'm Vince.
I'm the Gringo.
See you later, guys. Peace out.